Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of Tilly. I am your host, Marissa Zeppieri-Caruana. A lot of you already know me as Lupus Chick. If it's your first time being here at Tilly, Tilly is brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. It is a weekly online episodic series where we talk about chronic illness, lupus, we interview patients, we interview people in the medical world, and just all kinds of incredible guests that talk about a variety of topics. So today we are bringing back one of our favorites, Arnita Roberts-Christie. A lot of you already know her, you're big fans. We just recently had her on for another topic for the engaged patient. You can always go back into our video library and look at all of her previous presentations. She's an educator and a patient engagement liaison with GlaxoSmithKline. GlaxoSmithKline has been one of our incredible sponsors for the Tilly, so we're very thankful for them. Arnita, thank you so much for coming back again. And for anyone that's new here, and this is the first time being here, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, thank you. I would love to. And hello, everybody. It's good to be in your presence again. And Marissa, as always, thank you for being such a gracious hostess. And thank you to the Lupus Foundation New England for having me back. As Marissa said, my name is Arnita Roberts-Christie. I am one of the patient engagement liaisons here at GlaxoSmithKline. And what I have the humbling pleasure of doing is traveling around the country, educating patient communities about the disease of lupus and supporting caregivers as they understand the disease of lupus as well. And so without further ado, today we are going to talk about journaling and symptom tracking. And I am going to share my screen with all of you. And so this is titled Managing Your Lupus, Practicing Disease Self-Management. And again, we're going to talk about journaling, talk about symptom tracking. We're also going to talk about communication as well as preparing for your doctor's appointment. Now, although I am a registered nurse and I have been for about 35 years, this presentation is not meant to take the place of you having a very open and honest conversation with your healthcare provider. That relationship is so critically important, and I am the biggest cheerleader of making sure that I share that information with you to encourage you, empower you to have a really good relationship with your healthcare provider. You know your body best, and they have medications and treatment plans that can help you along your journey. But the important thing is that you have to communicate with them. And we'll talk a little bit more in the presentation about communicating. And so symptom tracking, keeping track of your lupus. Why is this so important, Arnita? Why is it important to keep track of my lupus? I take my medications, I'm trying to live my life, but why must I track my symptoms? Well, at GSK, we have a whole community that's called the Us in Lupus. And you'll see that in the lower left-hand corner. And it says usinlupus.com. And with that, we have a community of Facebook, a website, a Twitter, an Instagram, and all of that community. Sometimes patients will come to that community and they will leave us notes. Notes not just for GSK, but notes to encourage you, another lupus warrior. And this particular patient left a note that says, keep a daily journal. And that can help you and your doctor to discover what may be triggers for your symptoms. So I moved on to say, when we look at why it's important to track your symptoms, it's important because it allows you to track when you are having a symptom, how often you have it. And that how often you have it is termed how frequent you have it. So those two words are used interchangeably, or you could say how often I have a certain symptom or how frequent I have a certain symptom. How long does that symptom last? Another word for that is called the duration, how long that symptom lasts. And then intensity, how strong is that symptom? When I am triggered, how strong is that flare? How painful is that flare? How much am I swelling? And so those are talk about the intensity of your symptom. I love this picture of this young lady because she, to me, represents youthfulness. I am of a generation that I like to write everything down. This young lady, and perhaps you, my generation, might say, well, Arnita, on my smartphone, I know that there is a section where I can write in my notes. I can type in or use my fingers to type something in the notes section. If that's you, I applaud you. Use what you have that's available to you. Others of us might like to take a calendar and write a smiley face or an upside down smiley face to say, yes, this was a good day, or yeah, I had a lot of symptoms on this day. But the important thing is that you do what works for you, what works for your lifestyle, what works for your daily activities, whether you're doing it on an app, a notebook, or a calendar. Make sure, if you haven't started monitoring your symptoms, make sure that you do start today. I encourage you to start today, and I encourage you to keep it up. I know I was presenting a couple weeks ago to another group of lupus warriors, and one patient said, well, I can't remember to write things down. And another warrior that was on the phone and said, well, why try not speaking into your phone? Push the voice memo section of your phone and then just verbalize how you feel. And that will allow you to keep a record of how you're feeling. It will stamp the time and the day, and you can always go back to it. And this can, when you're keeping track of your symptoms, you can communicate this information to your healthcare provider. And that is a way that could possibly help reduce long-term organ damage. And so I talked about symptom tracking. Well, what is health journaling? It's a little bit different, but all the same thought is that you are keeping track of what's going on in your life as it relates to your lupus. So with symptom tracking, you are keeping track of your symptoms. With health journaling, you're keeping a detailed record of your health experience. Now, that health experience could include your diagnosis journey, any tests or procedures that you're receiving. It could also talk about additional triggers. Maybe you've been living with certain triggers and all of a sudden you notice that there are additional triggers that you've been able to identify because of the symptoms you've been the symptoms you've been tracking, excuse me. Try saying that like 4 times. You can also keep track of your health journal. Write down what your emotions are and your mental state. Yes, that could be related to your symptoms, but it is also part of your health journal. And so all of these different boxes on the screen, not an exhaustive list, not a conclusive list, or not a list that involves every single thing. That's what those other words mean. But it is a list of opportunities, if you're not already health journaling, that these opportunities can go into your health journal. And so how can health journaling help you? Well, oftentimes we are understanding that when you write down, you are expressing how you feel. Whatever was on the inside of you, you are now bringing it out. And you can bring that out by writing. Some people find writing very therapeutic, very relaxing, because they're no longer bottling up what's inside, but they're able to put it down on paper or be able to speak it out of your mouth and put it into something that records your voice. And doing that has been shown to have clinical benefits for patients with autoimmune disease and patients that have inflammatory conditions like lupus. Writing can help you organize your thoughts. For instance, if lupus fog becomes real in your, a certain part of your life and you just cannot remember all that's coming in and there's so much external stimuli, if you write things down, you are able to put things in an orderly fashion, and that way you can go back to it when you need to. And over time, your health journal can give your healthcare provider more accurate picture of how your lupus is affecting you on a daily basis. And so let's talk a little bit more about journaling how to. So we want to find a format that works for you. We want to start with your health history and your goals. We want to make it a part of your everyday routine. And then we want to share this information with your healthcare provider. When you write or when you journal, you can include your signs and symptoms. You can include your emotional or your mental symptoms, any symptomatic triggers that you've been aware of, as well, again, is how is lupus impacting your life? Sometimes we haven't even given that a thought. Sometimes we're just on like automatic. We're just going. But when you stop and be present for a moment and think, how is lupus impacting my life? Is it impacting me at home? Is it impacting me at work, at school? What about my social life? And once you identify all of those areas and you write them in your journal, make sure to share that information with your healthcare provider. And in speaking of sharing, let's now move to communication. Good communication is a necessity. It is critically important to have good communication. And what do you mean by good communication? That means that there is an opportunity for you to tell someone how you are feeling, that you're not holding anything back. You're very honest, you're sharing, you're talking about it, whether you're sharing with your words or you're writing it down. You're open and you're honest about your communication and the many ways that lupus is affecting you physically, mentally, and emotionally. When communicating with your healthcare provider, there might be some challenges. For instance, they may be short on time, or you may not understand the words they're using. And sometimes that can create a sense of fear or embarrassment. Arnita, I have no idea what my doctor just said. I am encouraging you. I am empowering you to ask the question. Dr. Jones, before you leave out, can you just review with me what the word alopecia means? Or can you review with me why I need to come in every 3 months? Why I need to have certain lab tests? What does a history and physical mean? What does going to a nephrologist mean? Make sure to ask the questions. Don't feel embarrassed that you don't know the answers. The healthcare community is here to support you and here to answer your questions, but we don't know your questions unless you ask them. So don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. Don't even be embarrassed if you think you pronounced it incorrectly or wrong. Someone might say wrong. I say differently. Just do your best. I encourage you to do your best. Ask the question, communicate. And before your next appointment, speaking of communication, and we're continuing with that, make sure, again, that you track your latest symptoms, that you think about how your symptoms are impacting your life. Think about what goals you want to have for your treatment. Write it all down in a list format that you're able to organize it and go to quickly. and then possibly plan to take someone with you to your next healthcare appointment. Practice what you want to say. Remember, I said don't be embarrassed or ashamed about how you pronounce certain words. But just in case you say, I want to practice this word, I want to be able to say the word systemic lupus erythematosus without stuttering. My hat would be tipped to you, because that is not an easy word to say, especially not more than once. But if you want to say it, practice it. And so that when you go into the office, you can say, doctor, I know that there are different forms of lupus, and I understand that I might have systemic lupus erythematosus. What does that really mean for me and my life? During your appointment, have your list of medications with you, have your health journal, where you've been tracking your symptoms, have all of that information with you, and then be present to right there in that doctor's appointment. There may be a lot going on in your life, a lot going on even around you, but make sure that you are present right there, being a good listener, writing notes, repeating the takeaways. So, doctor, you said you want me to take this medication 3 times a day. Well, I was taking it 2, but now I'm hearing you say 3 times. Repeat it back to them. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because you can consider whether you want to seek a specialist or seeking a second opinion based on what your healthcare provider has shared with you. We are at the end of our presentation. And what I forgot to mention earlier was that if you're watching this presentation on your phone, you're going to need your phone to bring it up to these QR codes. And you say, well, what do you mean, Arnita? Well, if you bring your phone up to the QR codes and you see, and you press the camera button on your phone and you bring it right up there, you will see that it will make yellow brackets around the QR codes. And those brackets, it may say open in a different browser. It may say open in Chrome. It may say open in Safari. And what that will do will take you right to our Us and Lupus site. Once on the site, scroll up a little bit until you get to the box where you are able to put in your email address. When you do that, and you, for instance, if you click the first box on my left, learn more about symptom tracking. We could possibly send you a symptom tracking kit if you put your email address in there, and then it will ask you for your mailing address. You can register to receive a symptom tracking kit. You can learn about keeping your disease activity low. And then you can also click the last box on my right, which says to understand the financial impact of living with lupus. I'm going to leave it here for about 5 more seconds, but the important thing is, if we move from this slide and you're not able to go right to the website by the QR code, understand that the website is listed right at the bottom here. It's usinlupus.com, usinlupus.com. And so now I want to thank you. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your commitment to yourself. I thank you for taking the time to understand what it means to symptom track, what does it mean to be a health journaler, why it's important to have communication with your healthcare provider, and what you can do to prepare for your next doctor visit. Again, my name is Arnita Roberts-Christie, one of the patient engagement liaisons here at GlaxoSmithKline, and I thank you for your time. Marissa, I will turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's one of my favorite topics, journaling. And I just wanted to share. So for anyone watching right now on their cell phone, we always keep these videos up in our video library on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you weren't able to go to the QR code because you need your phone, just open up your Facebook on a laptop or a desktop, and then take your phone and just, find the video and fast forward to the QR code, and you can do it that way. It's always here. So you can always come back and find it later. But thank you so much. It's such an important topic. Something I just wanted to reiterate, or have you reiterate, is how often should someone be journaling? Is this throughout the day? Is it like once a day? Is it depending on how much we can remember? Like, I try to make notes because I know by the nighttime, I'm not going to remember everything I did or ate or took as a pill or things like that. So
Exactly. And, it's an individual, it's a great question. And I thank you for asking it. And it's also an individual question, or I should say it has an individual answer. Sometimes we would remember to journal every day, and sometimes we may not. The important thing is that you journal your health history, and then you track your symptoms. Sometimes you have to write it right then and there, because that's when you remember it. And as you said, Marissa, sometimes at the end of the day, you may not remember. So you've got to do a little bit of trial and error and see which way works best for you. But again, the important thing is that if you haven't started doing it, or if you have not been doing it, that you start today. Make today a great decision, is saying, okay, Arnita, I'm going to write down a smiley face because I feel great today. That's what I got for you. Let's go with it. Whereas on another day, you may put an upside down smiley face and you go, okay, I did not make breakfast. I did not get out of bed. I did not sleep well. And so you can just make them one-liner sentences, or you can share a little bit more about how you're feeling with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's something, especially in the beginning, because it can seem very overwhelming. Even if you just make like a note or two, it's something. And then on the days that you feel, okay, you might want to add a little bit more. And on the days that you really feel good, you may not journal that day. I mean, it happens. I've obviously missed plenty of days. But it's always neat. I like to be able to look back and see the patterns and see the data, it's all mine, so unique, right?
Yes, it is.
Answer so many questions. So it's a great topic. I want to thank you again, and just for your time and for the amazing information that you always give us. You can always go back into our video library and look up Arnita's past presentations. They're on a variety of topics. And we want to thank GlaxoSmithKline for being one of our Tilly sponsors. And we look forward. I know you have a couple of presentations coming up in the future with us. So definitely stay tuned for more Arnita. And I want to thank you again, Arnita.
You are very welcome. It is my pleasure to be with you, Marissa. Again, always such a gracious hostess. And thank you again to the Lupus Foundation of New England for this phenomenal series called Tilly. Thank you.
And for anyone else wondering, you can come back next Tuesday night at 8:00 Eastern, and we will have a new episode of Tilly. So I hope you have a great night and a wonderful week. Take care.